Time now for our Entre Nous segment, and today we're talking about mistakes and accidents at work. And for more on this, we can bring in Solange Mougin. Solange, great to see you. Why are we talking about this today?
Well, April 28th is the World Day for Safety and Health at Work, and it is also Workers' Memorial Day. Now, this is a broad sociological issue that the UN tries to tackle every year, and it's one that affects nearly all of us. It makes us ask questions like, how safe is my work environment, physically but also psychologically? What guardrails are there? Am I affected by others' mistakes at work? It is a vast subject. But I thought for this segment, I would touch on two aspects that have been making headlines here in France recently. First, it's France's tragic record as among the worst in Europe when it comes to deaths at work. And second, a recent scandal here on the number of deaths and accidents due to medical errors in France, which experts say are largely systemic problems in the health sector, like a lack of safety protocols, overwork among doctors. And finally, we'll touch on some of the recommended solutions, which are known and which are actually quite similar. So to start, in France, at least 2 people die at work every day. And that figure by the health authority of 764 people in 2024, it does not include all those in the farming sector, in public service, or independent workers. So it is actually an underreporting of the number of deaths on the job. Even as it is a low estimate, France's 3.6 fatal accidents per 100,000 people, it puts France in the sad top spot as the highest incident of work deaths in the EU. But that Eurostat figure, it has to be taken with a grain of salt because France usually includes in its figures all sorts of causes, accidents, or something else. And this is important to keep in mind when we compare between other countries, as every nation has their own way of reporting the criteria. Also, the length of time from a death and work, with many also underreporting their deaths and accidents. A lack of clarity on the prevalence of accidents, mortal or otherwise, helps this issue be brushed over. It's often forgotten that work can and does kill. And our France in Focus team, they did a show on this, which can actually be found on our website. And they spoke to both work inspectors and also family members of young manual laborers who are particularly at risk, young men who were killed on the job.
We don't talk about workplace accidents enough. That's why I'm doing this, to make a lasting impression, so we can actually discuss this and stop hearing empty rhetoric. And say, yes, work kills. Yes, unfortunately, it kills.
Safety is not a priority. That's also why France has such poor results when it comes to serious or fatal workplace accidents. I find it absolutely mind-boggling that as the world's 6th largest economy, we have such poor results. And it's also because there isn't a culture of safety. If Germany does better than us, it's because there is a genuine culture of safety in Germany. And that's what we're lacking.
So, Solange, we know the construction sector is particularly vulnerable, but so is the medical industry and its patients that often end up paying the price.
Yeah, and here too, there are calls for safety measures and guardrails to be massively boosted. In early April, the French neuroscience professor and the former head of surgery, Marc Tadier, he released an investigative book called The Scandal of Medical Accidents. And he said that at least 30,000 people die in France from medical faults every year, which puts it as the 4th cause of death in France after cancer, cardiovascular, and lung diseases. He says that there is actually a code of silence in the medical field about making mistakes.
A lack of rigor, a lack of precautions, of equipment, that's the scandal. To know what could fix this and to do nothing. All of it is put in the same bag, it's closed up, and we stay quiet, and then we pay.
Now, there is the cost of lives lost, but there's also the cost of people being gravely injured. And the French Health Authority, they put the number of EIGSs, this is how they're called in French, or medical accidents and unintentional injury, at anywhere between 160 and 375,000 cases of accidents in hospitals and medical centers every year in France. It's thought that half of those could be avoided by better systems, communication, better work environments. So there is a human human and personal toll, but there is also a financial one. And the France's finance watchdog, the Cour des Comptes, it released a report on Monday that looks at what they say is a structural problem in France's nearly 3,000 hospitals and medical centers, which treat some 13 million people every year, estimating that these mistakes, they cost the state billions of dollars, euros every year, and that there needs to be a massive rethink and reforms.
So Solange, whether it's the health sector or other industries, many of these mistakes or accidents, well, they can be avoided.
Yeah, we all make mistakes. I have made mistakes on this program. Construction workers slip up. Doctors are spread thin. We're all human. That is not what is being called out here. Rather, what is being called out is a system and systems that are not catching the errors, or the accident model, you could say, of slices of Swiss cheese. This is an accident model. And the idea is that when all the holes are aligned on all of those slices, the grave accident occurs. Whereas if you shift one slice, well, there are safety checks or protocols in place, or no-go checklists, for example, which we have for planes, then those accidents may not happen. And interestingly, be it for general work or those in the medical accidents in the medical field, the solutions are known, and they're actually quite similar. Better communication, more inspectors, stricter authorizations, less outsourcing of tasks or care, or a diffusing of responsibility. Safety checklists security checklists rather need to become a part of a daily work life, and a system that encourages also people to say they've made a mistake or accidents at work, and so that next time they can fix the issue.
Indeed. Thank you very much for that, Solange. Solange Mougin there with that. And you can check out other editions of our Entre Nous segment on our website, france24.com.